what I'm going to do, I'm not going to dream of challenging mining per se. I'm going to look at the smaller stuff. We decided that I should talk on sustainable and circular supply chain right throughout your whole value chain, upstream and downstream, the whole way. And what I'm finding in a lot of the summits, they're up to 2 a day that I'm trying to attend. There are lots of people, especially when I give a presentation. Sometimes I have a room full of people here in South Africa who didn't do geography or science at school, and I have to explain climate change. So I've boiled it all down. I'm a Montessori teacher, lots of pictures, and my purpose of today's talk is inspirational, some stories, motivational, for you to pass on to people in your network who are just starting their journey or perhaps need some of the fundamental principles of what's going on. So the news is terrible. The Oscar bloody slap got more coverage than a 40-degree above normal temperature in the Arctic. People never even knew about it. India, the terrible heat wave in India, the highest CO2 ever globally, wildfires in North America, drought in Kenya, terrible flooding down here in our own KwaZulu-Natal, terrible, the worst in, I think, in history, not even in living memory. Climate refugees we've only begun to see. Deforestation is what breaks my heart. Anthony, I've been to the Amazon, up to Iquitos, to a tribe that hadn't seen white people up a tributary. What a heartbreaking story. War in Ukraine. If we stop to think, it's actually a fossil fuel war. It's almost like a zombie apocalypse. If people are saying it won't happen to me, I'm sorry, it will happen to you. So what we're doing, this is what we're leaving our children. They're going to say, you're telling me you didn't know? Why didn't you do something? I was very fortunate to be invited by the United Nations to COP26, to the Blue Zone. And I mean, wow, look at that plenary. Oh my goodness. The people outside were a bit more interesting, I have to say. The weirdos and the hippies. There were too many white men in suits and not enough indigenous people, especially, as Anthony will know, you've met the people in the Amazon. This was the panel, just as an aside, one of my little stories, panel discussion, and this man walked up with a beautiful suit, shoes, filthy hair. His hair was so dirty, I took a picture. Turned out he was the king of the Netherlands. We've been talking for 15 minutes, laughing and chatting and sharing stories, and then he stood up to speak and they introduced him as the king. I had no idea. What a maverick, what a wonderfully interesting man. The only true emotion I saw was the president of Tuvalu, a tiny island, and the president of COP, when he nearly broke down when India changed some of the wording in the report. This is where the action happened, not the blah, blah, blah in the big venues. This happened in the corridors, and these were our esteemed leaders. So what I'm finding, well, I've been doing this for 50 years. What I'm finding, there's too much jargon and too much geek speak. All these words, carbon tax, sink, hero, offsets, credits, neutral, budget, capture, goodness gracious me. Sustainability, circular economy, regenerative systems actually pretty much all mean the same thing. It's what I've been doing for 50 and in more detail, more professionally for 35 years. Sustainability means do no harm, leave it as it is, and the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. Circular means to keep things circulating within an industry for as long as you possibly can. I'm afraid that it's a bit too much trying to save plastic. I think the oil industry is behind it. You can quote me on that because other people feel the same. So it's recycling is not enough. They're trying to keep reuse, redesign, remanufacture, a whole new way of thinking. Regenerative, we spoke about that in farming. It started in farming, but the word's been used incorrectly in a lot of places. What it means is leave whatever it is in a better condition than it was before you got there. And I absolutely hate acronyms. There are people at summits like this, they speak in acronyms and they speak as though they're reading their PhD thesis. So the most important ones are ESG, environmental social governance, all over the place now, finally being taken seriously. The next one is net zero, which is actually should be NG for net greenwashing. And the last one is unbelievable sustainable supply chain. I was on a workshop a couple of weeks ago, 14,000 architects from around the world on one workshop about sustainable interiors. So to tell you where I am, this is to inspire anybody who's thinking of getting into this field. I grew up on a very ordinary farm, no running water, no electricity. We'd never seen plastic. But that helped me to know where things come from. Today's children don't know where things come from. I took my gap year, ended up in London in the middle of the flower power era, Canada, and then in California in the middle of the hippie era. Where marijuana, by the way, wasn't illegal until Nixon made us grow it in our cupboards. Came home and found myself procurement manager for 82 hotels for the Togo-san Hotel Group. Right, I'm a Montessori teacher right out of my field. I hated it, 50 very long years, trying to get them to go green. Having learned what I learned in California, because I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency there. Stanton International Convention Center was our first green project. I did a wonderful recycling program, sent all the information upstairs, and nobody took any notice. So in a moment of madness, I decided people had to see, touch, and feel what I was trying to talk about. So what I do now, I find myself a global speaker. I've just been to Azerbaijan, of all places, for goodness sake, Scotland, India, Italy, China, Mongolia. I build exhibitions where we display goods so people can see what sustainable goods look like. I do consulting, and I have 2 online websites. Now, here is a chance for one of you to start something similar. One of them is still the only one in the world. They are 21 years old. They're like yellow pages. I make no money, and they are used by 33,000 people every month. We just look for the greenest that we can find. Nothing is 100% green. Log it onto this register, and it's just gone ballistic. So for the young women here, this is what I want to tell you. I started this when I was 69. I'm 79 now. I'm still traveling everywhere, never had more fun, and 22 awards in the last 10 years. What is your passion? What worries you at night? Turn it into something. It is actually your calling, and things just come at you. We didn't plan anything. Everything just comes at us. So contact me through LinkedIn or greenstuff.coza, and let's talk. I'll get you on the road. So why all this urgency? The Paris Agreement says we have to say below 2 degrees since the Industrial Revolution, which was 150 years ago. We've got to stop at 1.5 degrees more than the average temperature at that time. The IPCC report, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, is we must reduce by 50% by 2030. This is when net zero is coming in, and it's just got to be fixed. And zero emissions by 2050. Zero emissions is the target, not net zero. So a 2-day workshop I run on climate change and ecocide. I was trained by Al Gore. You all know this. I'm not going to go through this. So the extra heat used to bounce out into the atmosphere, into the space again. Now it can't because of this blanket of greenhouse gases around the Earth. 400,000 years. Look at the picture of the last 150 years of carbon dioxide. And parallel is global warming. So obviously carbon dioxide and global warming are running together. And this is what people like Trump don't understand. It's always been cold. It's always been hot. What's happening now, it still gets cold, but it's getting hot more often than it gets cold. This is the training that so many people trying to get onto the ESG journey don't have. And the causes we all know. We're not going to go through that in detail now. And then the other thing that breaks my heart is ecocide. Eco means life, and side means to kill. We are going to need 5 planets if we all want to live like the Americans. And growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell. And the effects of ecocide are heartbreaking. Deforestation, animal cruelty, pollution, children working, digging up minerals in muddy rivers in the Congo, allergies, toxic chemicals, slave labor, overfishing. So sustainable, circular supply chain. Keep it simple. All we need to do is look at the energy use, water use, and how we manage the waste right through our value and supply chain. And then what is neglected is everything else: the biodiversity, social equity, animal rights, toxins, deforestation, soil degradation. That's where we need to do work. The other three are really easy to monitor, measure, and fix. Recycling plastic, Tree Hugger agrees with me, is an absolute waste of time. Turn off the tap. We're mopping it up instead of switching off the source. So life cycle assessment is what you can use. Keep it simple with every decision you have to make, because everything you do every day, everything you buy for your company, including things like your indirect procurement, everything impacts on the environment. So what I do is I go through the life cycle assessment. Where did it come from? How was it transported? How was it manufactured? How is it distributed? How is it packaged? What happens at its end of life? Can it be recycled, or does it just get thrown away? So how I deal with this, with the kind of audience I have to work with, I say, imagine you're holding the hand of a very small child. And he says to you, Daddy, where does your phone come from? Or where does my new T-shirt come from? You need to go through the whole cycle, the whole history of that product. This is a whole 4-day workshop on one slide. But just point out to him, it's going to be quite difficult, and explain to him what happened right throughout the journey of that particular product. And at the end, he's going to say, where did it end up? And you're going to have to tell him. And he's going to say, my God, Dad, you knew, and you bought it anyway. So how do you choose the most compliant? We had nothing. When we did our first project, we were completely mad. We booked 100 square meters at one of the big exhibitions, asked somebody to divide it up into 5 rooms for us, and asked the people on my Green Stuff website to send us products for us to display on their behalf. No, I mean, I have to laugh. We had no idea what we were doing, but people just help you. The greenies, everybody just helped us. Somebody built the shell screen for us, and we furnished it from front to back with only eco products. And how we did it is 20 years ago. There were no things on that you could Google to help you. We used very simple score sheets. This is where you start. This is where you start. Really basic. In those days, all based on honesty, very few labels. And then we got a little bit more sophisticated for one of our big BBC Lifestyle asked us to do a project for them. And now we actually use professional templates. Those of you who are trained, qualified procurement and supply chain managers, you were given a template during your training to choose between 3 suppliers and look at the key performance areas of them, not knowing their names, putting in your data, and all the sums are done for you, and you can see which is the most compliant for your particular company. Now what you do, take that same template and just change some of the key performance areas into environmental things like packaging, distribution, how far it traveled, whatever is important to you. Put in the data and get your sum. Then the strategy to use when you want to go more formal is, first of all, to define exactly what you want. Think for think of what your products of concern are throughout the whole supply chain, as I've said before, and concentrate on those. Then you start to measure them, analyze that, improve where the weaknesses are, control it, and then report. You can do this yourself, but there are the most amazing people out there now. So start with a Survey Monkey to every stakeholder in your company, in your circle, in your network, with the basic questions. Ask them what they think. Don't tell them what to do. Ask them what they think. And then just Google for software. There's amazing stuff. One of the biggest at the moment is EcoVadis. EcoVadis. Have a look at their website and see. They do everything for you. And then your call to action. There's always a choice. There's an old way of doing things, and you'd be amazed how often there is a better way. So just stop before you do something and look for a better way to do it. Go onto my website, you'll find a wealth of information there. There are only 2 of us that run that whole thing, myself and my amazing technical girl who lives on a farm. And then the best advice you're going to get today is talk to the old folks. They know stuff. My mother was a landscape gardener, and she never built a house or started a garden until she found the oldest person in that area. And at Henley on Klip, she'd built a beautiful 2-acre garden and a beautiful home. Hers was the only one not flooded. Ask the old folks, what is the worst weather they can remember, and prepare for that. South Africa can't really mitigate. We have to start preparing and adapting. We must know what's coming, and these folks can tell us what they remember and adapt for that. Listen to their stories. Those stories are hundreds of years old, and there are lessons in those stories. I run a whole workshop on the impact of climate change on Africa, most focused on tourism, but it applies to everybody, and things we must do. One of the things we need to do, for example, is stop growing wheat and maize. They're not going to survive climate change. We should be growing millet and sorghum and stuff that these people will remember. And, we can say, yeah, screw you, Earth. And the Earth will say, yeah, well, screw you too. And just remember one thing. The children are watching you. And they're going to say, Mom, Dad, you knew. What did you do? I'm going to skip past this quickly to some slides I picked up at a workshop yesterday. If this is the Earth, the Future of the Earth Committee, around a table discussing what we've been discussing now, you'll have an engineer, a scientist, educator, a politician, a businessman, and a citizen, for example. What is missing from this table? The planet is missing. Biodiversity is missing. And most important of all, your grandchild is missing. Your grandchild should be at that table to say what he wants in his future. So that's me. Thank you, Sarah. I know I spoke very fast. I always do, and I will never learn. Thank you for that, and I hope you got some value of it. Contact me. I run these courses. A lot of them I do pro bono. Big guys like you must pay me, like Exaro Mining Company. I gave them a very big talk at their AGM. And an example of why I've taken this approach is Chanel phoned me from Paris and said, don't look at our fashion, don't look at our designs and that, look at how we run the company and keep it simple for the people that sit in those offices. So I got all dressed up with fancy shoes and when I walked into this workshop, everyone was in office clothes. So we've got to be real. We've got to bring it down to layman's terms and plain English. Thank you, everybody.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lorraine. A massive round of applause from all of us. And I mean, thank you for the inspiration, really. And that reminder, yeah, what did we do? We knew this was coming. What do we do? That call to action. And I think this has been a resounding theme throughout the week, hasn't it, Ludovine? We've been messaging about this behind the scenes. So many people have said, just transition, whatever, just get on with it. Just get on with what it is that we're needing to do. Lorraine, so I think lots of us are going to be contacting you with regards to your material and also looking at your websites as well. So huge congratulations on what you've managed to build there. Now, with regards to all of this, I'm sure if people have got questions, please do feel free to reach out to Lorraine. I know that we've had some fantastic discussions over LinkedIn over the last couple of years or so, which have been brilliant.